I was halfway through going over the sales numbers for the quarter when Nathan walked into my office. No knock, no hello, just a loud entrance meant to shake me. Typical Nathan. "Julie," he said sharply, throwing a folder onto my desk. "We need to talk. Now." I looked at the folder, then at Nathan Lane, the man I'd worked under for the past 5 years. He was the type who only noticed women in the office when he needed coffee or someone to handle his schedule. He liked power and loved reminding others that he had it. Still, I stayed calm. I always did. "Of course," I said, motioning to the chair in front of my desk. He didn't sit. He just stood there. "The board has decided to restructure the leadership team," he said. "We're going in a different direction. We need leaders, not just people who follow spreadsheets." I blinked, surprised. "You're firing me?" He smiled like he'd just won a game. "Let's not be dramatic. We're releasing you from your role. Effective immediately. No warning. No performance reviews. No thank you, even though my team had just hit the highest revenue growth in 4 years. "I see," I said quietly. "Can I ask why?" His voice was cold. "You don't have vision. You manage tasks, not people. And, to be honest, this industry needs strong leaders, people who are confident and assertive. Those aren't qualities you've shown." There it was. A clear insult hidden behind business talk. He didn't see me as a leader. Not because I hadn't done good work, but because I didn't fit his old-school idea of what a leader looks like. "I understand," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. Nathan looked at me, surprised I wasn't angry or crying. But I had learned how to stay in control, especially in rooms full of big egos. "I'll need your badge and laptop by the end of the day," he said. "Your access will be cut off at 6 p.m. HR has your severance package." I nodded and stood up, holding out my hand. "Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate the honesty." He paused for a moment, then shook my hand. "Good luck out there," he said, before turning and walking away, clearly pleased with himself. I sat back down and let out a slow breath. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. In fact, I felt lighter. Because what Nathan didn't know, what no one in that office knew, was that I wasn't just a department head anymore. Something big had happened 3 weeks ago. I had been waiting for the right time to act. I looked at the framed photo on my desk. My father was in it, smiling proudly at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the company's first regional office. The same company Nathan had just kicked me out of. I ran my fingers along the frame. "You told me to wait, Dad. Wait for the right moment." I stood up and started packing. I didn't take much, just a few personal items, a mug for my team, and some old notebooks full of ideas Nathan had ignored. Outside, the office was quiet. Some coworkers gave me quick, sympathetic looks. Others avoided eye contact. No one asked anything, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Did she get fired? What happened? I walked out with a small, polite smile. No big goodbye. As soon as I stepped into the sunlight, I felt the weight of 16 years at that company lift off my shoulders. They thought they had ended my career. What they had really done was open the door. I took out my phone and sent a short message to my lawyer. "It's time. Prepare everything." The reply came quickly. "Understood. Shareholder meeting can be scheduled within 6 business days." I looked back at the tall glass building behind me, shining in the sun. Nathan thought this was the end. He had no idea what was coming. The next time I walked into that boardroom, it wouldn't be as an employee. It would be as the majority shareholder. And I would be smiling. The outfit I wore that day was real, but 3 weeks earlier, everything had changed. I had been sitting in the quiet, wood-paneled office of my family's lawyer, looking at an envelope I wasn't allowed to open until exactly 12 p.m. on my 31th birthday. My dad always liked dramatic moments. He said it made serious things feel more meaningful, and this was one of those moments. "Julie," said Mr. Henry, our longtime family lawyer, in a kind and gentle voice, "your father left very clear instructions. You must not open this envelope until your 31st birthday. Not even a day early." I gave a polite smile. I was part curious, part amused. "What is it? A late birthday card or something?" I joked. He gave me a look that said he knew what it was, but he wasn't going to tell me. Your father was a man of vision, he said instead. And he trusted you more than anyone. That sentence stuck with me in the days that followed. My dad, who founded and used to run the very company that had just let me go, was someone who believed in planning ahead. And he believed in me. When he died 6 years ago, the company started to change. It felt colder, more focused on numbers than people. Nathan joined around that time. He won over the board, showed off his MBA, and slowly tore down the caring culture my dad had built. I had stayed, thinking I could protect what was left. But now I realized my dad had known this might happen, and he had made a plan. On the morning of my 31st birthday, I opened the envelope alone. I was sitting in the same chair where Dad used to read the newspaper every Tuesday. Sunlight came through the window. The room felt warm and calm. Inside the envelope was a letter and a legal document with fancy stamps. I opened the letter first. It was written by hand in my dad's neat handwriting. Julie, if you're reading this, it means you've turned 31. That means you're ready. I never doubted it, not for a second. You've spent your life working twice as hard for half the credit. I saw it, even when you thought I didn't. I saw the late nights, the quiet strength, the honesty when no one else was watching. I also saw how the company changed after I left. I knew there might come a time when you'd need more than just a seat at the table. So I gave you the table. I paused. My hands were shaking as I looked at the second page, the document behind the letter. It was a legal trust, signed and notarized. According to it, 95% of the company's shares that my dad still owned when he stepped down were now in my name. They had been held for me until I turned 31, and now I had full control. 95%. I read it 3 times. Then a 5th just to be sure. I wasn't just a shareholder. I was the shareholder. I was now the majority owner, the one in control. My whole body buzzed with disbelief, adrenaline, and something else. Power. Quiet, steady, real power. I called Mr. Henry right away. Is this real? I asked, barely able to speak. Yes, he said calmly. Your father set up the trust carefully. It doesn't require public filings. It's solid. The board doesn't know unless you choose to tell them. Why didn't he activate it earlier? I asked. He wanted you to experience the company for yourself, Mr. Henry replied. To see who people really were, and to let you decide if you wanted it before you used it. That line hit me hard. I had spent years being ignored, talked over in meetings, and underestimated. I'd watched Nathan get praise for ideas I had first suggested. I'd seen male coworkers get promoted faster, even when they did less. I had stayed quiet, thinking patience and hard work would eventually pay off. But now I saw the truth. It wasn't about time. It was about power. And now I had it. I set up a follow-up meeting with Mr. Henry the next day. Let's talk about what comes next, I said. He didn't hesitate. We'll prepare the paperwork for a shareholders meeting. We'll let the board know once everything is ready. Not yet, I said. Wait until I give the word. There was a pause. Julie, he said, may I ask what you're planning? I looked out the window of my apartment. Cars moved along the street, people rushed by, not knowing everything was about to change. I'm planning to walk into that boardroom, I said, and show them exactly who they tried to fire. I didn't show up for the exit interview. HR called twice, then sent an email. I ignored all of it. Instead, I sat quietly in a corner booth of a small downtown cafe, drinking a flat white while Mr. Henry reviewed the final version of the shareholder meeting request. It was official. On paper, I now controlled 95% of the company's voting power. That was real. And Nathan never saw it coming. You sure you're ready? Mr. Henry asked, adjusting his glasses as he slid the documents over to me. Once you send this in, you're basically throwing a grenade into their boardroom. I looked him in the eye. My voice was steady. They pulled the pin when they fired me. He gave a small nod. Fair enough. The documents were simple, like many powerful things are. A formal notice of a special shareholders meeting with one agenda item, a leadership review, and the appointment of new executive management. Nathan wouldn't see it coming. That was the point. His whole style was about control, using big words, taking over meetings, and charming people when needed. The board, mostly older men who liked his confidence, had let him do whatever he wanted for too long. They were about to find out what a real leader looks like. It was surprising how weak that kind of power really was. "I'll send the notice Saturday morning," Henry said. "The meeting will be set for Thursday. That gives them 3 business days to panic." I couldn't help but smile. Perfect. That afternoon, I met with Helen Mirren, the trustee who had managed the shares since my father passed away. She was smart, quiet, and remembered everything. "I've watched that man tear down your father's legacy, piece by piece," she said, sliding a folder across the desk. "You don't owe him kindness." Inside the folder was everything I needed for Thursday: ownership certificates, voting records, and a full report on how the company had been doing under Nathan's leadership. The facts were clear. Employee happiness had gone down, more people were quitting, money was being wasted on perks for executives, and revenue had stopped growing, even though the market was expanding. "He's been covering it up with fake projections," Helen said. "If this keeps going, he'll destroy the company within 3 years." I nodded, taking it all in. "I'll let the numbers speak for me." As I left her office, I walked by the mural in the hallway. It was a painting of my father standing in front of the first company building. He looked younger than I remembered. His hand rested on the shoulder of a little girl in a red dress, me. He believed in legacy and in people. And even though he was gone, I could still feel his support. By Wednesday morning, talk about my sudden exit had turned into full-on gossip. Old coworkers were texting me. "What happened? Did you quit? Nathan's acting like everything's normal, but HR won't say anything. Whatever you did, I hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Not yet. The silence was part of my plan. I wanted Nathan to feel safe. I wanted him to think he had erased me. Let him enjoy being in charge just a little longer. Let him underestimate me one last time. That evening, I stood in front of my mirror and tried on the navy suit I'd bought years ago for important events, but never wore. It was sharp and well-fitted. The kind of outfit you wear when you walk into a room not to ask for power, but to own it. I practiced what I would say. Not a long speech, just a few clear, strong sentences. I didn't need to say much. The truth would do the rest. Thursday morning came. The air was cool and fresh. The city moved like normal, unaware that something big was about to happen in one boardroom. I arrived 10 minutes early, walking past the front desk with quiet confidence. The receptionist looked surprised, but didn't stop me. Upstairs, I saw the boardroom lights were already on. I could see people moving behind the frosted glass. Mr. Henry met me by the elevator. His face gave nothing away, but he was calm. "They're in there," he said. "Nathan's already talking. He thinks it's just another meeting to go over strategy." "Not for long," I said. I took a slow breath, smoothed the front of my jacket, and stepped forward. The door to the boardroom opened with a soft click. Heads turned. The room went quiet. And Nathan, someone was mid-sentence when he saw me. He stopped cold. "Julie," he said, raising his eyebrows. "This meeting is for board members only." I gave a polite smile and placed the ownership documents on the table. "Exactly." Then I walked to the head of the table and sat down. The room went completely silent. Nathan stared at me from the far end of the long wooden table. His face shifted from confused to stunned. I could almost see him trying to figure out how I'd gone from the woman he fired last week to this. "Julie," he said again, louder and sharper this time, "this is a board meeting. As I already said, employees aren't allowed." "I'm not here as an employee," I said calmly. "I'm here as the majority shareholder." That one sentence changed the entire mood in the room. Board members looked at each other. Some straightened in their seats. Others leaned in, curious. Mr. Peter, who had been with the company since my father's time, looked down at the document I had handed him. Then he looked up at me, eyebrows raised. "Is this correct?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "It is," I replied. 90% of the company's shares were given to me through a family trust when I turned 31. All the paperwork is complete, signed, and filed properly. Nathan looked at me, then at Mr. Henry, who was calmly unfolding another copy of the ownership certificate and handing it to the board secretary. "You can't be serious," Nathan said, louder now, sounding panicked. "This is ridiculous. Why would your father?" "Because he trusted me," I cut in. "And because he knew exactly what this company would become without someone watching." The room went quiet again. Everyone knew what I meant, even if I didn't spell it out. Since my father's death, Nathan had changed the company. The culture had become toxic. He rewarded loyalty over skill, appearance over results. And the numbers had started to reflect it. "Let's get to the point," I said, opening a second folder I had brought with me. "As majority shareholder, I've called this special meeting to review the current leadership, starting with the CEO." Nathan stood up, his face red. "This is a coup. A personal attack. You think you can just walk in here?" "I'm not asking," I said, raising my voice just enough to get everyone's full attention. "I'm using my legal rights." Then I slid the financial report across the table. "Let's talk about performance." I didn't need drama. The numbers told the story. Employee satisfaction had dropped by 45% in 3 years. Turnover in key departments had gone up 50%. There were 3 serious discrimination complaints under HR review. Revenue had stayed flat in a market that was growing fast. I had gathered statements from department heads, results from employee surveys, and findings from financial audits. I also had proof of company money being misused, unauthorized travel, large bonuses for executives, and reports that misled investors. I looked at Nathan. "All of it happened under your leadership," I said. The board members started reading the documents. Mr. Peter looked truly upset. The CFO, who had been quiet until now, leaned over and whispered something to the company's lawyer. The lawyer immediately began typing on his tablet. Nathan's jaw tightened. "You're twisting the facts to make your little revenge story look real." "I don't have to twist anything," I said. "I have proof. You counted on the idea that no one with real power would ever question you. That ends today." I let that sink in for a moment. "Effective immediately," I said, pulling out the final document. "I'm submitting a motion to remove Nathan Lane as CEO of this company. As majority shareholder, my vote is enough to make it official." The board secretary looked shocked. You don't need a second vote?" "I own 95%, I said simply. "That's a majority by any definition." Mr. Peter cleared his throat. "In line with company rules, the motion passes once the paperwork is complete." Nathan slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do this." "I already did." No one had to call security. Nathan didn't fight. But as he stormed out, angry and stunned, I noticed something important. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked small. When the door closed behind him, I took a deep breath and turned back to the board. "This company deserves better," I said. "Its people do too. And starting today, that's what they're going to get." Mr. Peter nodded, a small smile forming. "Welcome back, Julie." By the end of the week, Nathan's nameplate was gone from the CEO's office door. I didn't move into that office right away. I didn't need a big desk to prove I was in charge. I had something more important to do first: rebuild the heart of the company my father started. That work began the Wednesday after the shareholders' meeting. I called an all-staff meeting in the main conference room, the same place where Nathan used to show off sales numbers like trophies and give the same few executives fake praise again and again. But this time, the feeling in the room was different. People came in slowly, whispering to each other. The front rows stayed empty, like no one wanted to look too eager. Some faces looked nervous. Others were unsure. They had been let down before. I stood at the front of the room alone. No slides. No speech. Just the truth. "Some of you know me," I began. "Some of you only know what you've heard. But let me start by saying this. I didn't come here to take power. I came to rebuild trust." A few heads turned. People were listening. "For years, this company was strong because of you. Your ideas. Your long hours. Your belief that what we were building mattered. And somewhere along the way, that was lost." I paused for a moment and let the silence settle. "I was fired last week," I said, with a small smile. Told I wasn't the kind of leader this company needed, that I didn't have what it takes to guide us into the future. A few nervous laughs broke out, but the room was starting to shift. My honesty was reaching them. I didn't fight back, not then, because I knew something Nathan didn't. I continued. That leadership isn't about being loud or looking important. It's about vision, respect, and lifting up the people who actually do the work. I looked across the room and made eye contact with people I knew, engineers I had worked beside, assistants who were ignored, junior analysts buried under layers of management. Starting today, that changes. Over the next 3 weeks, I did something different. I listened. I sat down with team leads, department heads, interns, receptionists, even the cleaning crew. I asked what wasn't working. I asked what they needed. I asked who they thought deserved more recognition. Then I took action. I promoted Lauren from the customer service team to head of client experience. She had already been doing the work for a year, while her manager took all the credit. I brought back Douglas, a brilliant product developer who had quit after being passed over again and again in favor of less qualified men. I restructured HR from the ground up. I went through every old complaint that had been ignored or buried. Several mid-level managers who created fear and favoritism were quietly let go during the first week. Then I launched something my father had once dreamed of, the People First Initiative. It was a new program to celebrate great ideas, reward teamwork, and make sure everyone had a fair chance, no matter their title. No more whispers behind closed doors. No more invisible barriers. Just good people doing great work and finally getting credit for it. One evening, I walked through the office alone. The energy felt different now, warmer, lighter. There was laughter in the break room again. People were staying late because they wanted to, not because they were afraid of what would happen if they didn't. Desks had personal touches again, photos, plants, little signs of life. Things that had slowly disappeared while Nathan was in charge. In a quiet hallway near the engineering area, I passed a whiteboard. Someone had written in blue marker, "She came back." Just 3 simple words, underlined twice. I stood there for a moment, reading it again and again. Not, "She took over." Not, "She fired Nathan." She came back. That meant more to me than any title I now held. The next week, I finally moved into the CEO's office. Not because I needed a bigger space, but because it was the right time. The nameplate on the door was new, sleek metal, simple and clean. Julie Powell, Chief Executive Officer. I didn't bring much with me. Just one framed photo, me and my father on the day the company first opened. We were both smiling, both full of hope. I placed it on the corner of the desk and sat down, not with pride, but with purpose. This company wasn't just mine now. It was my responsibility, and I was going to take care of it. It had been exactly 1 year since I was fired. 13 months since I walked out of this building holding a box, smiling politely, told I wasn't what the company needed. 13 months since Nathan took away my title, without knowing I held something much stronger. And now, I stood at the same glass doors. This time in a tailored suit, holding a leather folder, ready to lead. I didn't feel angry. I didn't even feel triumphant. I felt calm. The receptionist stood up as soon as she saw me. "Good morning, Miss Powell." "Julie, please," I said with a smile. "We're all on the same team." The elevator chimed softly as I rode to the top floor. What used to be Nathan's office was now mine. But I hadn't changed it just to make it look different. The walnut desk stayed. The big windows overlooking the city were still there. What I did change were the photos on the walls. Now they showed our people, team retreats, product launches, moments led by people who had long gone unnoticed. And behind my chair, on the far wall, hung a large portrait of my father. Not to show him off, but to remind me why I came back. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started reading the quarterly report. It was our best quarter in 6 years. Customer satisfaction was up 25%. Employer retention had risen 45%. Revenue was at an all-time high. But what mattered most was how we did it, by being honest, working together, and staying open. The company culture had changed. People didn't whisper their complaints anymore. They spoke openly, and someone listened. Feedback was encouraged. Diversity in leadership had doubled. We weren't just hiring great people. We were helping them grow. There was a soft knock at the door.
"Come in," I said.
It was Lauren, now head of client experience. Her eyes sparkled behind her glasses. "You ready?" she asked. "They're waiting in the conference room." I stood up and smoothed my blazer. "Let's do it." The boardroom felt different now. Not because of the furniture, but because of the people. For the first time in company history, half the board were women. Several members were under 50. They asked tough questions. They brought fresh ideas. They made smarter choices. At the center of the table sat Christian Turner, one of our new strategic advisors. Smart, kind, and steady, the kind of person my father would have trusted. Before we started, Christian gestured to me. "Julie has a few words," he said. I hadn't planned to speak. But as I stood there, every eye on me, not judging but truly listening, I realized something. This was the moment my father had prepared me for. "I want to thank you all," I said, "for believing in change, for making hard choices when easy ones would have been safer, and for helping rebuild a company that puts people before power." I paused, letting the words settle. "Someone once told me I lacked leadership," I continued. "But leadership isn't about being loud or having a title. It's about having vision, being responsible, and doing what's right, even when it's hard." I smiled. Not to impress anyone, but because I meant every word. My father built this company on those values. And I'm proud to say, we're finally living them again. The room was quiet for a moment. Then came the applause. Not loud, but warm and real. The kind that stays with you. That afternoon, I took the long way back to my office. I walked through each department, just like I used to when I was one of the team. I stopped to chat, shared a laugh with the developers, and high-fived the marketing interns who had just pulled off their first big campaign. In the break room, someone had baked cupcakes for an intern's last day. I took one, sat down, and spent 30 minutes talking about everyday things, nothing work-related. Because this wasn't just a company anymore. It was a place where people felt they belonged. And that, more than numbers, titles, or payback, was the real victory.